This video is going to be my overall thoughts, impressions and review of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I'll start by including a background of things, I'll then move on to the things that I really enjoyed about it and then the things that I didn't. I'll also include some gameplay in the background which I recorded the other day, which will just show off a variety of different things what you can do in the game. Do be aware though that I will talk about some spoilers, and from the footage that I recorded there is some things that I would consider to be a spoiler. So if you want to skip to this part, which will be my overall summary, which will be spoiler free. So if we just start with a little bit of background of it, when they first showed the trailer of it, you know, when it was first announced, I was really excited, as most people were. But then I stopped following it as such because I wanted things to be a little bit of a surprise. But when they were showing gameplay I was getting a bit worried with things because it wasn't what I was hoping for in a Legend of Zelda game, or at least not what I was used to. So I was getting a little bit worried with that. And then I was really starting to get put off with things when they had the dedicated Treehouse Live E3 Zelda special thing, because they were showing off the open world aspect, the resource collecting, the like cooking aspects of it, and that was really not what I wanted. So I stopped following things from there on. I was still going to buy it, but it wasn't going to be a day one purchase, so we're going to see how things panned out. However, the Switch event, I think it was January time, had the Breath of the Wild trailer at the end, and that just changed everything completely. That was everything that I wanted, and I was really excited for it from there on. So we'll start with everything that I really enjoyed about the game. So we'll just say that I was gripped from the start, basically. I didn't think I wanted an open world, but it seems like I did, because all what I wanted to do was just go and explore. And it gripped me that much that I played it for a hell of a long time. And when I weren't playing it, I was just thinking about playing it. I was highly taken by surprise with the amount what you can do, because I had no idea that you could literally climb anything. If there's a mountain there what looks like it touches the sky, you can literally climb it into the sky. I mean, your stamina may be an issue, but you can regen it and just carry on climbing. But not only that, there's the physics in the game, because if, for example, there was an enemy camp what was surrounded by long grass, you can stay away, set fire to the grass, and then use a leaf to like blow the fire in their direction and set fire to the whole grass around them and clear it like that. But not only that, the fire will then create like an upwards draft, so you can propel yourself up and glide and then just pelt them with arrows. I mean, I had no idea about some of the things that you can do. I ended up searching online for some videos and just watching people take on encounters in ways that I never thought were possible. I was really impressed by one thing what they have, and that's shrines, which I guess could be labelled as mini dungeons, like little challenges which you can do. There is quite a lot of variety to them as well, because some will offer straight up combat challenges where you need to defeat a guardian. Some will offer little puzzles to do with your runes, so you might have to use stasis in a certain way, your magnet in a way, your bombs, use fire, etc. Or even the motion controls, which quite surprised me because they were pretty fun. There are quite a lot of them as well, because there is, I think, 120. Some are easy to find, some are well hidden, but I think there is just enough variety within them that they don't become stale. And they shouldn't become stale anyway, because some of them literally take under a minute to complete, which isn't too bad. The rune system's pretty decent as well, because this seems to replace the previous thing of you need to go here to get the boomerang to do this puzzle, you need to go here to get the bow and arrow to do this puzzle of previous games. Whereas within the first few shrines, the first open area of the game, you will have access to all these runes, and these allow you to do the puzzles within the game. And there's pretty cool ways that you can end up using these to your advantage, especially stasis. There's also a lot of cool areas within the game what seem pretty varied from each other. I mean, you have your usual Death Mountain, Zora's Domain, a desert and like a snowy area. And they're all completely different from one another, as you'd expect. And there's also like a challenge, in a way, to be able to get to each place. Because like Death Mountain, obviously it's surrounded by lava, and it will be very hot. So you need like gear or a potion with like heat resistance, so you can do it. Like the snow area, you need cold resistance. So not only do they look different, but the environment acts different as well, which is pretty cool. So I guess that kind of leads into gear, which this game seems to have quite a lot of different pieces of gear what you can get. And a lot of these pieces of gear will have different effects as well. So you can get like a swimming set. I won't say exactly what it is, but this set will increase your swim speed with each piece what you put on, but when you put on the full set, you'll no longer use any stamina when you go to do a dash. One thing I know what a lot of people didn't enjoy, and I didn't to begin with, is that weapons can break and there's no way to repair them. You have to go out and like find another one. That was an issue to begin with because every single time I come across a weapon it'd be rubbish, and when I used it, it wouldn't take long before it broke. But the more I progressed, I was just finding weapons right, left and centre, so I was never running out of weapons, and it let me use different weapons as well. It let me try out different ones, what I probably wouldn't have if I just, you know, stuck to this one. But there are weapons what do have status effects on them. So you may come across some what have a durability up, so they don't break as easy, or, you know, they have higher attack and whatnot. The only weapon that I found that doesn't break, but in a roundabout sense it does, is the Master Sword, because you can use it, but if you carry on using it, it can like lose all its energy, so you have to wait 10 minutes before you can reuse it. I mean, it is a bit of an issue altogether, but I didn't mind it too much because I did enjoy using different weapons. One thing that I did appreciate is that you can tackle this game like in any way you want. It does give you the mission like straight away, destroy Ganon. Like, and after you do the initial part, you can just go straight to him, or you can do the 4 Divine Beasts. You know, in any order you want. I would say not to do the Gerudo one first because that boss was pretty difficult. The Rito one up in the snowy mountains, that was a piece of piss. I saved that one to last because I thought it was going to be the hardest, but that seemed like it should have been the initial one what you should do. And speaking of the Divine Beasts, I did have a mixed opinion on them. Overall, I did really like the idea of them because they are these huge beasts that have been like controlled by Ganon, and they do look pretty cool. The issue what I had with them was like aesthetically, because inside it's the exact same for each one. It's laid out in a different way and offers you different challenges, but the looks of it was all the same. It was just this sandstone aesthetic to it, and these will act as the like main dungeons within the game, which is like a sad departure from the really varied proper dungeons of other Zelda games. And not only that, they are pretty easy. I mean, they do have a boss at the end, but to get to the boss, you know, it's a simple puzzle, a simple few puzzles, and then you're done. There are a hell of a lot of secrets within this game, but not only that, but there's also like nice throwbacks to previous games as well. There does seem to be quite a lot of throwbacks to Ocarina of Time, because the Temple of Time looks really similar to one of the ruins what's in the game. There's the ruins to Lon Lon Ranch, and there's also throwbacks in the Lost Woods as well, where there's parts what are named after Saria and Mido. And then there's 4 different fairy isles as well, and they're all named after Tingle and his brothers. One thing what I do need to add is there is quite a lot of wow moments within this. I mean, you can marvel at how the world is when you just look around, but there's some moments where there's just really cool things what happen. I mean, I was wandering around Lake Hylia on the bridge, and then all of a sudden this big dragon just appeared from nowhere out of the water. You know, and I'm just stood there thinking, what the hell's going to happen? I didn't know if it were hostile or if it were friendly, but I just stood there watching it because it totally took me by surprise. I was not expecting it, and it was just so cool to see. And there is more than one of them as well, which is even cooler, because when you're just walking around and this big dragon appears from nowhere, it just makes you think, wow. Like the final ascent on Hyrule Castle was really cool as well, because that was a pain in the arse with all the Guardians around. And the fight with Ganon was even cooler, and I had no idea that the things that you did before in the game with the Divine Beast would actually like come into play in the battle, because it just takes him down to half health anyway. And then you carry on fighting him, and after you beat him, you think it's over, but it's not. And then you see Ganon in his final form, and you're just on the openness of Hyrule Field, and it's a really epic moment. And there is a huge sense of scale to it as well, and also empowerment. For me, it is a satisfying ending, because it does make you feel like you have saved the day and you are the hero of Hyrule. I do feel like the difficulty is a bit all over the place, to be honest, because Ganon wasn't like a difficult last boss. I do feel the most trouble I had was with one of the divine beasts in the desert. Everything else seemed pretty simple boss wise. I even had more trouble with normal enemies, like just getting used to the overall battle system. But I do feel like you make it harder yourself by not being used to the mechanics. I did really enjoy the dynamic weather as well. It changed the game completely. When it rained, it looked completely different and it affected the way you played. When it was thunder and lightning, when you're in a storm, if you had metallic objects on you, the thunder, you know, you could get struck. And it did get me quite a few times. It made me jump because I weren't expecting it. But you do notice it. I did notice afterwards that, like, you can hear the electricity and you can see it on your weapons before the lightning strikes. And it can really damage enemies and take out camps completely. And it totally sets fire to the grass, tears down trees, and that's a really cool aspect. Finally, there's the music, which I'm not too sure which way to go on this. There are quite a lot of tracks which I did like and they will stay with me because they are quite memorable. But quite a lot of time I didn't notice that there was music there because it was that subtle. But I do think one of the reasons for that is a point what I'm going to bring up in a bit. And now I'm going to move on to the flaws. Now, as much as I do like games, I am willing to accept flaws, I am willing to point them out. And this game is not without its flaws. Obvious one, what many people have pointed out, is the frame rate. Now, it will drop in a lot of areas. It will drop sometimes for no apparent reason. For the most part, I don't think it does take away anything from the game, but sometimes it does because it can come to an absolute standstill in fights, which isn't good at all. Sometimes when I've attacked an enemy and knocked him away with the sword, it will like freeze for a good second before it starts back. Another one is voice acting, which I'm kind of torn between because I did quite enjoy most of the voice acting, but I do feel like some of it was a bit cheesy and a bit low quality. Inventory space as well were a big issue for me. I know you can upgrade it, I upgraded it many times with Korok seeds, but it just comes a bit of a pain when you have to collect so many Korok seeds to upgrade your inventory so you can start carrying more gear, because with the way the weapons break and sometimes how easy they break, you do need to stock up and the amount what you have isn't enough sometimes. So personally I just think it should have given you quite a few extra spaces to start off with. Stamina as well. I do like the use of stamina, but I don't like it for the use of running. For climbing, for swimming, it makes sense, but for running I didn't feel it was necessary because you were just holding the button to run, it deplete straight away, you'd let go, you'd let it recharge, and you keep doing it over and over and over. So you'd be running, stop, running, stop, running, stop. I don't feel it should have been used for running. And as much as I did enjoy the dynamic weather, I do feel like it rained far too much, and I did feel like it affected you a bit too much when you were climbing. Like, if it were raining and you were climbing, you would just constantly slip down. One thing that I really didn't enjoy about the game at all, and I saw no point in it apart from the obvious final part, was the fact that it had horses in. I had no use for a horse whatsoever. I never used it. I would rather walk. Like, I didn't really use fast travel that much, only when I desperately needed it to go from one side of the map to the other. But I never used a horse, apart from, I think, the side quest and the final boss, and that was it. Like, there was a side quest where you would have to jump a certain amount of fences within a time limit, but the horse just seemed really awkward to control, and sometimes it would outright refuse to jump. I mean, you could be going at this fence full speed in a straight line and then it would just stop, and like if you went at a fence at an awkward angle, it would just refuse. And it just seems sometimes like if you were running towards one, it might control itself and just sway to the side a bit and miss it completely. Overall, I did not like horses whatsoever, and I was using a pony and that had max everything. Biggest issue with me was the music. Like I said, I did enjoy some tracks, which is fine, but sometimes it was just too subtle that I couldn't hear it. Now, what most games have, and I always go into it straight away, is a music option where you can turn music volume up or you can turn sound effects down, etc. But this didn't seem to have any of that. It was just a straight, you play it like this, you have no control over the music. You can use your speakers to turn it up and that's it. But the problem is when you turn the volume up on your speakers, all the sound effects are that loud. So all what I would have wanted was an option for the music to turn the sound effects down. Maybe the ambient noises up, if it was an option, and the music way up so I could hear it. So I do feel like it is really poor and inexcusable not to have a sound option. And finally, the last flaw that I found was with the Divine Beast. Since these act as your main dungeons, there is only 4, so you've only really got 4 main dungeons, which you can skip if you really wanted to. They are too short, the easy bosses, apart from one of them like I said, dull aesthetics to it, and it just made me miss, I hate to say it, but proper dungeons. It really made me miss them. Like I said, I really did enjoy the idea of them, but I think they could have been done so much better. So, final thoughts. Overall, I really did love the game. I mean, I ended up playing it for 65 plus hours, and I loved every single bit of it. And I think my overall completion percentage at the minute is 24.31%, which is crazy for 65 plus hours. There is so much what I did enjoy about the game, but it has got its flaws, but I absolutely loved it. And I do believe that it is a masterpiece, but it is a flawed masterpiece. And I did say this in a previous video, but Majora's Mask is my favourite Legend of Zelda game. I do adore it. But I do believe that this might have knocked it off the top spot, and I think this is my favourite Zelda game. I mean, I've never put this amount of time into a Zelda game before in like such a short space of time. I mean, 65 plus hours in, I believe it was 10 days since release. I know a lot of people have done more, but that's a crazy amount of time for me personally. And if I was to sum it up in roughly about one sentence, it'd be, I was worried at first with everything what they were showing, but this ended up turning out to be the Zelda game that I didn't know I wanted. So cheers for watching, and I do hope to continue things like this for games that release in 2017 that I do end up beating, because next on the card is Resident Evil 7.